What's up, you filthy casuals? Welcome to the Casual Shenanigans Gaming Podcast, a podcast all about the irreverent love of gaming. I'm one of your hosts, Jeremiah, and tonight I am joined by my fellow co-host, Dave.
Podcast all about loneliness with just the two of us.
Also a podcast about loyalty. Less loyal this evening is Joel, who is out doing something else, but Joel and I will be doing the main topic for you, unless the scheduling does not work out, in which case there will be no main topic, and we will awkwardly skip over that when it's time.
That's kind of loyal, I guess. I don't know.
He'll be back later. We'll record later. But Dave,
yes.
Now next week, speaking of loyalty, it will be the tech podcast recorded by yours truly, because you and Joel are going to be where?
Rubbing shoulders with rockstar game developers.
Rubbing shoulders with the unwashed masses.
Yeah, probably so.
Maybe a couple game developers.
please be washed, masses. Please be washed. Just PSA. Wash.
Are you gonna bring like hand sanitizer?
That is a really good idea.
You should bring hand sanitizer and breathing masks and a decontamination. No, but at least hand sanitizer.
I'm gonna wear a tactical vest with just Lysol spray, like in canisters. Thum, thum. Welcome to the show floor.
You can also buy a pack of like heather gray undershirts and just change your shirt like every 2 hours once it's absorbed enough death. Just take it off, throw it away, throw it in a trash can, put on a new one.
It's gonna be great. Yeah, we'll be at E3 next week in case you guys haven't figured it out.
So we're still gonna try to do some post press conference recap episodes like we've done the past 2 years. We're still not quite sure how that's going to work, but we're going to give it a shot. So keep an eye out for those, unless they don't happen, in which case we're very sorry. And then you will hear from Dave and Joel more about the show once they get back. And I will be doing the tech podcast next week. So if you didn't know, this is a podcast all about the irreverent love of gaming. And we record live Thursdays at 8 p.m. Now, Dave, you might remember this conversation. It's not always 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Sometimes
here we go.
8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time.
You don't understand, Jeremiah. We talked about this in the meeting this morning that you weren't at for like a half an hour again.
Oh, I've been in multiple meetings and multiple emails. Now, here's the thing. I like finding stuff like this and being like, did you know there is a better way to do this?
Hey, guys, get ready to be technically correct.
Right, exactly. The best type of correct. But I can also appreciate how everybody else is like, I don't care. Maybe it is right, but this doesn't affect my life. Everybody knows what you mean. I don't care. So we record 8 p.m. Eastern Time. 8 p.m. Eastern Time. YouTube.com/casualshenanigans/live. You can also find us on Twitter at casualshenaniga. We're on Stitcher. We're on the iTunes. We are apparently on the Google Play Store. I forgot I had submitted the RSS feed there years ago, and then Sherbets left a comment and was like, why don't you put it on the Google Play Store? I was like, why don't I do that? And I submitted it. It was like, it's already there. And I searched for it, and there it was. So somebody else asked...
Did you want to explain the whole time thing? You didn't actually explain it.
Oh, well, okay. So apparently Eastern Standard Time only applies, I think it's most of the year, and then Eastern Daylight Time is during daylight savings, or it's vice versa, but I think it's that way. Apparently Eastern Standard Time is not the correct
phrasing.
It's not the correct phrasing year round. So some people just shorten it to Eastern Time. So Eastern Standard Time, Eastern Daylight Time, and then Eastern Time. Don't do Eastern Standard Time all year long, or do it because everybody knows what you mean.
So that decided nothing then.
But as we get into the show tonight, we do need to thank one of our Patreon supporters. We have a new pledge this week. Tekla just pledged to the show. So thank you, Tekla. If you don't know what pledging to the show does, it pays for things like the light that Dave has packed up and is giving back to me because he wants the hot spot on his head. But it is also paid for these mics that make us sound pretty good in these cameras that do look pretty good. So, you win some, you lose some. And I've lost the light battle many, many times with every single host now. I think no, James still uses his light.
The cameras have helped the fact that you've lost the light battle because it could be a lot worse.
But a good camera and good lighting is the best way to go. Look how evenly I'm lit. Although I remember what you guys said, it looks too sterile. I need to come up with something better. I need to Rembrandt light this thing.
If you can find me, Jeremiah, like a 2-foot square studio light, just a small something is all I need.
Well, why
Please.
didn't we have this discussion before? There's little LED video lights that go on top of the thing. Just get that with a little diffuser on top of it, mount it on the wall right above your desk, and you're good.
Buy it for me. I will use it. The giant studio light on top of the gun safe is just so huge.
The reason we got the giant ones was because it was $110 for 3 of them, and I was like, okay.
And we want to be responsible with your supporters' money.
Exactly.
Yes, I feel dumb now because I've spent like an hour and a half over the last couple of years on and off looking for a small little light, and most of what I find is just crappy Chinese on-camera stuff. Maybe I'm not searching for the right thing. I don't know. I just haven't been able to find anything like that.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean there's options. We'll
Yeah, I'm in.
We'll figure it out. Cool. I have found it. Now, I'd have to find a version that you don't have to recharge the battery all the time. There's got to be a version that we can like plug into the wall or something. But
that was the other problem, is to find one that plugged into the wall. So many of them were like portable ones. It drove me crazy digging through all of them on Amazon.
Well, a lot of them are designed to be like mounted into a cold shoe on a camera. So, that's also something, if you don't know, a cold shoe is when you're plugging in a non-powered accessory that does not draw power from the port on the top. That's a cold shoe mount. Now, a cold shoe is one that doesn't even have the option to run power through it, where a hot shoe has the electrical connections for plugging in flashes and etc. for communication reasons.
Returning to Patreon, though.
Turning to Patreon, thank you, Tekla, for pledging and supporting Casual Shenanigans Gaming. We do appreciate it.
Joel's going to have to give him a voice because he's not here tonight.
We can do it next week. Yeah. Or 2 weeks from now.
However, because Tekla also backed me on Patreon this week.
Did he?
And he cut it so close. There is a special tribute in tomorrow's Fallout settlement tour to my Patreon backers. He actually missed the deadline for me to make the custom texture to add the tribute. But I opened up the texture and like got his name like scribbled into the side of the texture that I use. Like it actually says like and Tekla like off on the side, like in the wrong direction. So because Joel is not here to give you a voice, I will give you a General Dave salute instead. Ho ho!
And some people say that's worth even more.
Those people are wrong.
Why, hello there, a weird stranger. Welcome to the show. Oh, by the way, if you're like, who are these people you're talking to in the chat? Well, you can come and hang out in the chat. 8 p.m. Eastern Time, youtube.com/casualshenanigans. But anyway, let's start the show like we always do with the main topic. Okay, for our main topic tonight, Joel and I are going to talk about what we think about Star Trek Bridge Crew. So welcome to the podcast, Joel. Totally happening right in between me and Dave, talking about other stuff.
Yep. Yeah. Hey, Dave. He's just not answering because he's tired. He's drinking coffee or something.
Yeah. How Dave does. So, Joel, for anyone who doesn't know, what is Star Trek Bridge Crew?
Star Trek Bridge Crew is a VR game that is cross-platform. It's on Oculus, Vive, and PlayStation VR. It's a game about basically being a bridge crew on a Star Trek cruiser ship or war vessel, whatever they call it. I'm a fan of Star Trek, but I don't know all the Star Trek lingo and everything. But basically it's a 4-player game. You get to be captain, or you get to choose to be tactical, engineer, and helm, and everybody kind of does various different things, and you all have to work together to complete missions. The game has 6 different missions. It has kind of like a first tutorial mission, and then it has 5 kind of main campaign missions. And then after that, you can also replay them, and it kind of varies things up, and it changes challenges and stuff like that. But it comes with 2 ships, one that's kind of very based off of the newer Star Trek movies. It's not in those movies, but it's just based on that kind of feel. Yeah. Maybe that is one of the movies, but I don't think it is. I think it's just based on that kind of newer feel. Yeah. And then you have the original Star Trek ship that you can actually use, which I'm excited to try that. But it's much harder to use because all the buttons on the old ship were all like diamonds and jewels and random stuff that doesn't really make sense. So it's much harder to understand what's going on, but they were very faithful to the design of it. So they said, play the other one and you'll kind of get the idea, and then you can kind of play with the other one, which sounds like a fun challenge. But Jeremiah and I, we both played it a couple times just recently. We just picked it up. It came out just a couple weeks ago. I personally, I had a blast. It was a lot of fun. I had a couple issues the first night because either my PlayStation Network was down or some server issues were going down. But other than that, when we got in, it seems like it's going to be so really basic and could be really boring. But man, like everybody we played with was really friendly and nice and kind of just having fun and kind of role playing along made it way more fun. Like it is 100% a social game. And I think a lot of the thing, I think the fun in it is if you do enjoy being social with people, if you don't, you might not maybe enjoy the game, or maybe it'll help you to, get out of your shell a little bit, but you definitely have to be talking with real people online consistently, asking for orders, relaying things, or, I mean, you can go your way and cause chaos, and that could possibly be fun in its own way.
I was going to say, it's really fun right now playing with different groups of people. I am curious, is it going to be a little bit like DayZ, where like the first couple months, everybody's like, it's these scary interactions and nobody knows what to do and they're forming friendships. And then 6 months later, everybody's just murdering each other on sight. Like, is it going to be like that where like within a couple months, is it all going to be taken over by people shrieking into their mics and stuff? And I don't think it will, just because,
it has more of a personal connection to it. You know what I mean? Like it does feel like you're more sitting closer to a real person as opposed to seeing a chat box or only hearing a voice. It is very weird in a way when you like look behind and you're like, oh, there's Jeremiah. He's the captain. You can see his hand gestures and stuff.
I wasn't actually going to say even because of that, but one, I think it's awesome that this is a cross-platform game, cross-play game.
Yeah.
And I think more VR games need to be like that, because you think about it, between all three systems, you're still only looking at like 2 million units. And that makes it the smallest platform to play anything on. So for multiplayer games, anytime you can have cross-play, it's going to be so much better for getting actual games with people. And my assumption is it's most popular on PSVR. I've played with like 2 other people with Vives, and everybody else has been PSVR. The Oculus people, I guess, just didn't want to admit it or something. I don't know. Maybe I just haven't run into anybody else playing on Oculus.
Disconnect.
But I think people are generally friendlier and everything else because these are more serious gamers. Like VR is an investment, like learning how to buy in VR and then learning how to play with VR and stuff. It's generally people who are a little bit older, a little more mature, a little more disposable income, and they're more invested in like the cutting edge of gaming. For now, I'd be curious to see where we're at 5 years from now.
And obviously, and also because the games are kind of trickling out, you are going to move, it's like, to me, it's funny. I was thinking about Star Trek, and it actually reminded me a lot of the game Journey. I don't think I'll play hours upon hours upon hours of this game, but that doesn't mean it's a bad game. It means I really enjoyed it a lot, but I move on to other games no matter what. Like I played Journey. It was a fantastic game, but I probably won't replay it 60 times. It seems like it's going to have a good amount of replayability, especially if Dave ever picks up VR or something like that.
Speaking of which,
I think it'd be such a blast. Oh, yeah. Well, he did. Yeah. I didn't know what we were supposed to say. Anyways, if Dave gets VR, but having more people, I was just thinking like, I wish. I was, no joke, Joy got to play it. My wife played a little bit of it. It was fun watching because she is a huge Star Trek nerd. She loves Voyager. She grew up during that series, and that's Captain Janeway is like her absolute favorite. And I was like, man, if they make a DLC around that or the ship. But I was like, it sucks that, it costs $400. I was like, man, to be able to play with my wife would be so much fun, like sitting over there, like playing all together. Because it makes you giggle because you're looking over and it's still crazy. Like, oh, we're in a ship and I hit the warp drive and, and it was a blast. I mean, like just firing the proton torpedoes, and it feels like you're kind of playing a game of a chess mixed with like a puzzle where you're like trying to do different things. And when you have the 2 motion controllers, I'm like sitting over here tapping on proton torpedoes, and one I'm like swiping on and off the shields, like, oh no.
One thing, one reason I think the social interaction part, at least right now, seems to be working really well, is that as captain, if you're playing with AI characters, you can look towards them and then give them orders. Or you can give ship-wide orders, would like prepare for warp, and then everybody just does their job. Or if you look at a specific group or specific position, you can tell them what to do. But when you're playing with other people, you have to just talk to them. Like you have to tell them, hey, we need to go over here. So if everybody wasn't cooperating, then I guess nothing would still happen. But when everyone's cooperating, like you have to actually interact with each other, and each position has to talk to each other, being like we need more power on the engines. We need to go faster. We need more, we need to like arm the phasers or arm the torpedoes or something. Like you have to actually prepare all that stuff. And what's interesting is what's really fun is when everything clicks together. Like when we were doing that mission with those two guys, and like the guy on helm was like he sounded like a pretty young kid. The guy on engineering was like sounded like a really young kid. The guy on helm, his PSVR, the tracking was freaking out like he was sitting outside the play area or something. And so we're in the middle of we're like fighting these Klingon DC-5s. It's a tense situation. We're trying to Joel is locking onto this ship and warping locking onto these pods and warping all of these crewmen back onto our ship. And so we're zooming around and Joel's just screaming, or not screaming, you're yelling like, all right, arming it. Okay, we're firing. And we're maneuvering around. And all of a sudden the guy at the helm's like, guys, I got to restart my headset.
I can't touch the buttons.
And like his arms are like messed up, like sticking through his body. He's like, I'm sorry. And the kid on the helm, or the kid on engineering's yelling like, I put in more repairs into the shields. I'm getting the shields back up. And like when it works like that, it works really well. Like it's just an interesting game situation that you wouldn't normally find yourself in. At least for now, everybody's like getting along really well. Like what you're doing in the missions is not that incredible. Like, right, it's fly over here, scan something, shoot some stuff, fly over here, warp a different system. But it's all the interaction it takes to do all that together and work together as a team that makes it harder than it would be normally. Like it's not that hard if you play by yourself. It's not very hard at all. But it's harder and it's more fun because you don't know exactly how it's going to go. Like there's lots of judgment calls of like, what's the best way to get through this fight, or what's the best way to get this problem?
Did you hear me and John playing?
Yeah, I was sitting there watching. I recorded a lot of it.
Yeah, I was captain, and I laughed so hard because I was like, fire the proton torpedoes. And the guy was like, no, we should use phaser. And I was like, and I'm the captain. And he's like, okay, fire. And I just made me laugh because I was like, I think you can have such funny situations, but I can't help but think how much fun it's going to be actually to play with Dave. But I think playing this, it was fun being able to play with you for the first time, like in a legitimate multiplayer co-op, VR game. But there can be things rough around the edges. But to me, like I can't help but really want to like pour support into this kind of stuff because you can see the potential that if this stuff can take off and people can just slowly buy into it, and there's more developers and there's more systems out there to make money and everything like that. But like I read this AMA that the developers had, and they were just, they said, everyone wants away missions, or you have to go into medical, or you could just go into the room and play Star Trek chess or whatever that is, the 3D chess, just to have a social, like drinking fake drinks or whatever it is. Like that would be awesome too, like area to hang out with. And then, he said they also toyed with it. Originally in the game, they had a way that you could have the captain have a kind of a speech at the start. Or something like, kind of like all the shows. And they're trying to work in those things, but they tried to be really careful with this first one. And I think everyone's really careful right now with VR and making sure they get it working right so people can have good experiences, so they can get the idea, they get hooked, and then they realize, oh, okay, you can push it now. The next game, you can push it further and do more things. But they're opening up so you can walk around a little bit more, like move around a little bit more so the camera before it turns dark or something like that. Because they said, how do you make a game like this, right? So let's say your head is attached to the character, but if you walk 10 feet in real life, does your character in the game head just squish and fly out for somewhere else? How do you make him animate? So there's so many different difficulties in VR. So as people make more games and things are successful, they can do more things. But they already had a working version of multiplayer where you can actually fight against other bridge crew and see their bridge. They said that we weren't able to include it yet, but we're still looking at it, and we'll see down the road to be able to include something like that. I'm like, oh, that'd be awesome. Like, hail, like on screen, and you see Dave as a Klingon or something, demand. And they also want to work in kind of being able to kind of maneuver around things instead of having to fight. You can kind of like make deals and negotiate and stuff like that. But to me, I think, from playing that, I think you can start to see a little bit of the benefit of it's totally different being able to be really there in person with your other friends doing something. And it's like, wow, we're actually on a ship, we're making these things happen, and I've got a gun in my hand, and I'm like, we have levers and stuff. So I can't wait for Star Wars stuff to happen and other games.
Millennium Falcon.
Oh man.
So you could sit in each of the tubes yelling at each other. You would
Die. Like I'm sitting on the bottom and I look up, I kind of see you, you know, great kid, and I don't get cocky.
No, or you're sitting in an X-Wing and you turn around and it's just a little droid going, blue. It's James just sitting in the droid going, blue, 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 blue. Like anything he says just turns into beeps. Like he can't communicate with you.
There's so many possibilities. And so obviously VR is still young right now in its infancy, but I hope it, continues to expand. And there's already been quite a lot of interesting trailers released early coming out for VR. There's a game that just got announced and a trailer came out. It's called Tactical, like, I forget what it's called now. It's something tactical, but basically it's like basically Call of Duty or like SWAT, but it's cross-platform, but it's complete like multiplayer guns in a whole area where you get like this cool little like iPad thing where you can look around corners and, like all these cool little gadgets. I'm like, oh, sweet. Like that would be a blast to like play a 4-man group. All right, watch your size. And the scopes actually have like legitimate scopes you can look through and stuff. Especially with the aim controller. Oh man, you could do so many cool things. Get the Star Trek weapons, go on away missions. Could you imagine this? We go in the little shuttle and you see us flying out there in front of the ship and we're like, what do we do? And we're like getting attacked by someone or we have to go rescue people and stuff. There's so many things you can do and it's just it's fun. I would definitely say I've read a lot that there's a lot of people said, I keep on asking, if you didn't like Werewolves Within, would you like Star Trek? And I would say a yes and a no. If you don't like Werewolves Within because of the social mechanic where like, you're just like, I don't know, maybe not comfortable or don't enjoy talking with a lot of other people and that kind of, gameplay where the talking is kind of 80% of the gameplay, you might not enjoy Star Trek as much. But if you enjoyed the talking or like you enjoyed it and got the idea of it, but just wasn't your cup of tea, this you're going to really like. And I don't think you have to be a Star Trek fan to enjoy it just because you're on a spaceship essentially and you get to navigate and it's fun just interacting with people. So even if you're not interested, you can maybe pick it up on a sale when it goes on sale and try it out because it's worth the experience even for a couple times, just see what it's like in VR talking with people. Because my first game, I had the most wonderful captain ever, and he was super nice, super hardcore Star Trek guy, but just made me laugh so hard because, he knew all this stuff and he's because in VR, you can see where people are looking, and I was just looking around and I saw one of the ladies, like the AI people, and I was like, oh, who's that? And he's like, hey, keep your mind on the mission. And everyone's like, oh, look at the guy. Tactical's looking at the women. And I was like, oh, come on, guys.
No, so
it was just like that's I don't know, that doesn't really happen as much in other games because it's like you can physically see the people's heads looking around or pointing at you and stuff. So
something I'm curious about getting your opinion on. So this is interesting game that it's cross-platform, which means I believe you can use a controller, right? Like you don't have to use motion controllers. Okay.
Yeah.
But I think so far most of the people we've played with have been using motion controllers on whichever system they're playing on.
Yeah, I've seen like 2 people maybe use controllers, but that's about it.
It's a game where it really benefits from motion controllers because you're touching stuff. And it's also interesting because VR, is not known for being super sharp because the current headsets are, lower resolution compared to where they'll be in 10 years. And, but you have to read. Like there's a decent amount of stuff you're reading percentages and moving dials and things.
Yeah.
So besides the one guy who was having the weird tracking issues, like we'll assume he's an outlier. How do you find the tracking for like hitting buttons and stuff? Because on the Vive, I felt like everything was totally fine, but that's the Vive's whole jam is like amazing tracking and stuff. So I wasn't expecting any problems. But most people who are playing with PSVR, they seem to be using the motion controllers. Like, do you feel like it's working pretty well?
Yeah, I mean, I've had VR since literally day one, and so I've kind of gotten used to its quirks or kind of working around things, or if there's an issue, I can kind of quickly correct it because I kind of know what's going on. And I've like done a lot of reading of like, hey, maybe it's best to kind of splash a little bit of yellow light or green light in your room while playing. So I have one of those like smart bulbs, and I just have VR mode, and it has a little bit of green or a little bit of yellow, and I don't know if it really works, but I've just done it anyways. But no, I haven't had much problem because it's one of those things where they are already patching in a few things where they've found that people just like, because where it's situated, like again, if you're already sitting down and if you're sitting back in your chair,
you can't
if you
touch
reach down, you'll hit your chair, right? So now I'm used to VR a little bit now, so I always just kind of sit forward because I realize you're going to be turning and it's easier to just move in your seat no matter what. So I've kind of gotten used to that. But if you're not used to it, you can run into those problems. But they're not really big issue problems, and a lot of them kind of get worked out pretty quick. But it's one of those things where VR is something you do have to spend a little bit more time understanding. It may not be very hard to get into, but it's one of those things where, okay, you got to put a helmet on, you have to put headphones on, make sure that is, oh, did you not grab your PlayStation Move controllers? Like something like now I've gotten so used to is when I know I'm going to get VR, I set my controllers in a specific spot, I set my headphones on, and I know put it on, I reach over here, I got them. When I first got the VR, sweet, I put on the headset, put it on, I'm like, oh crap, my controllers are way over there, because normally I'll just go grab them. Well, now I got to take the headset off or look around, So the more you kind of get used to, you kind of go, oh yeah, you can't see, so I'll just put my controllers nearby, But no, I haven't had any problem. The tracking's been fine.
How's the reading and text stuff? Like when you look, let's say, so your head is pointing, up, just looking at what's going on in the mission, and you glance down without moving your head, so you're looking at the periphery of the headset, which is where they're normally, like, they're the least sharp because of the way the lenses work. Yeah. How do you find reading stuff down there?
Fine. I mean, so I can't wait to try yours. I have tried it out once before at someone else's, but supposedly the PlayStation VR has the best wide view when it comes to sharpness. It doesn't have the most wide angle all, but I haven't had any problem with it. Anything for the PlayStation VR works extremely well when things are between, like anything that's like really important is either between 3 feet to 25 feet. Mm-hmm. Anything that's like really important, it looks really, really good there. So like, when I'm looking out through the port window and you see spaceships, when it's like really far, you can tell like, oh, they're just little pixely things way in the distance, the ship, right? But anything between, I'd say the screen and the helm, the thing I'm actually touching the buttons on, it looks great. It looks really fine to me. So, but I haven't had any problems. Cool. So it's worked really great. I don't know what it looks like on the original PS4, but because I have the Pro, but.
And on Vive, the only thing I don't love is a common thing people talk about is you do get a little bit like the God rays effect a little bit depending on different lights and things. But once you play for a couple minutes, it's a little bit like the screen door effect on the PSVR. Like, I know it's there, but once you get used to it, you don't think about it anymore. You just tune it out, and then you never think about it, and you're just playing normally. Like, it goes away. Yeah,
especially when a game is done right and the menus and UIs are done right, you don't notice as much, and it just becomes that. Actually, when I had Ben over to play VR, it was funny. He said it's such an interesting thing because he's like, obviously you can tell it's not like really super high quality resolution. He's like, it feels like you're in a dream, because like when you dream, it's like you always kind of remember it kind of fuzzy a little bit. It's not, it just feels kind of like you're in a dream. So it's like, it feels really real, but something's off. But once you start playing after a while, it just kind of goes away. But again, if a game's not done well, it can instantly snap you back into reality that you're not there and something feels off and kind of can make you sick.
And that was my first impression. The first time I ever played a PSVR was like, okay, well the thing, it pinches my nose a little bit and it's kind of soft and things are really pixelated and the controllers are a little wonky. But 5 minutes in, once you get used to that and you're just playing the game, all that goes away and you're just immersed and you're playing the game. And this kind of feels like that too. Like I get the God rays a little bit. It's kind of weird that your fingers only move like that and stuff. And then, but then once you get into the game and you start playing, you just, all that fades away and you're just in the game. And like, even though, it's not an incredibly wide angle, it's, like this, it's like you're wearing a pair of snowboard goggles.
Like a scuba
thing. But it still, feels fine. Like you just don't notice it as much. And I do think that's interesting because this is one of the first games where that I've played where I want to spend 45 minutes or an hour, like in the game straight. And so you just don't really think about any of the VR stuff after that. It's good because it's also a game that I doubt is going to make anyone feel very motion sick unless you do a lot of outside the ship views.
Sometimes when the ship moves, it's funny. There's one when the ship turned to sideways, and I was like, "Whoa!" I feel like I didn't feel sick because I'm used to it, but it was like, "Whoa!" But yeah, again, if you're new, it's one of those things where like you have to caution people that there's never going to be a way where they're going to make where you're just not ever going to feel something, because VR is just it's if you haven't tried it, the only way to experience is you got to try it. There's just no way to explain it, and you can't watch a video. You got to try it. When my dad played it, he was not ready for it. It was such a blast to see him because it's like, oh, I get it now. You're in the game. It's like, no, you don't understand. Like, you're in the game. It's like, oh yeah, I know. No, you're in the game. So like when the ship moves, your body is like anticipating G-force and some movement. And when it doesn't, but again, you just kind of like retrain your brain, and it's fun being able to play games longer when they are really good experiences. Cause I just finished Farpoint. and it's wild. Like, oh man, I'm in a game, and like it's so cool. But I'm excited to play more games like that. But I was like, I can't wait for something like, I mean, again, if there could be a game like DayZ or honestly Battlegrounds, that would be incredible in VR. Being able to like have your own guns after playing Farpoint with the aim controller, like peeking around a corner, feeling like you're in there, because like it just makes the personal connection, seeing people. It's just weird. It's just like, oh wow, this is really like, okay, I'm gonna go shoot over that. Oh, it's cool. Yeah. I can't wait to play some more. And there's rumors of new DLC being announced, or new ships or things like that coming out, because everyone keeps on saying the next generation, please.
But any other thoughts about Star Trek Bridge Crew?
It's playing as I played as captain the first time, and I didn't realize I love the little HUD thing. You can make the on-screen change. I didn't know if I was just seeing that or everyone could. I thought it was just my personal view, and I'm like, oh, that's really cool. And so one guy was like, can you change to the other view, man? I was like, oh, I didn't know you could see that, because I was thinking like my game view. That was actually really cool. But I loved hitting like the red alert, and then and after a couple beeps, it just stayed red. And I was like, yeah, it's our time. But yeah, I can't wait to play more, and especially I almost want to save a couple missions for when Dave can join, because that's going to be a lot of fun. So,
all right, cool. Well, thanks, Joel. Thanks for talking about Star Trek, and I'll see you out there on the next mission, going boldly where I don't know. I'll see you for the next phase of our 5-year mission.
Yeah. Oh, that's fun. See you, Dave. Have a good podcast.
It's now time for What Are You Playing This Week, a part of the show where we talk about what we're playing this week. That was almost smooth, but you made some noise on the floor.
I just dragged the M1's barrel across the floor.
Dave, why? Why is that in a position where you could drag it across the floor?
It's upside down on the iron sights, too.
Why? Dave, what are you doing?
They got caught on the wheels. Everything's broken. No, it's fine.
I hope it was worth it for the joke. It is my fault, weird stranger, that you're stuck in an airport. I do apologize for that. Just wait. Later in the show, we'll learn about other things that are my fault. But this week, things that I've been playing, I have taken the potato masher upstairs, spoilers, and I am playing Vive games in the living room. And last night, the four of us played some Vive games for a while. Oh, the four of us, sorry, meaning me, my wife, Debbie, and her husband, John. And I played some Zombie Training Simulator, which is a ton of fun. It's not a simulator of any kind. They just stuck simulator in the name. It's a wave-based shooter where you shoot down like cartoon zombies that are coming towards you with a variety of guns. But the tracking on the Vive is so good. It's not like, I'm sure there are better games that do this for PSVR, but when I played some of the initial PSVR games, when you're aiming with the controller, like aiming a gun, there's that little jitter and stuff that it moves around a little bit just because of the way it does the tracking. This is like dead on. Like
that sounds
you're
awesome.
Just holding it. Like it shakes less than your hand does in real life when you're holding a gun. So I was like nailing headshots, and then I got like a shotgun, and there's like, you can throw grenades and you throw a stake to get the zombies to divert somewhere else. And it's really, really hard. You have swords and all kinds of things, but it's nice because it's a game where you can stand in one spot. And Dave, I hope you come over and give it a try. You can stand in one spot and then you just move your head around. You can step forward and backward and stuff because it is a room scale game, but you don't have to go anywhere to play it, which is nice because it lets you kind of get used to it at your own speed. But that was a lot of fun. Played some Job Simulator. Job Simulator is also not realistic at all. It's where you just do like, one of them is you're a short order cook and you're making these recipes by like blending up weird things and catching crumpets on fire in the toaster and cooking eggs like just flat on the stove and everything's on fire. And, John made like fire extinguisher, avocado, and egg soup for a customer yesterday. Like, it's just supposed to be funny.
I have a question. In Job Simulator, is one of the job options Big Boy Job? Because that sounds like the game for someone I know.
It's been almost 6 months, Dave.
I know. You're so busy. You work so hard.
Shut up. I'm so bitter. I'm so bitter. Job Simulator is a lot of fun. I also played a couple of things. I've been playing some Bridge Crew with Joel. A ton of fun playing Bridge Crew, but you already heard about that in the main topic. Unless we didn't do it. And let's see, what else did I play on VR lately? I've tried a bunch of different things, but those would be the standouts. So a lot of fun stuff, a lot of legitimately fun stuff. Now that it's set up on room scale, there's some real games I want to try. Arizona Sunshine I've played a couple times, but I haven't actually gone through the game because you need to be able to walk around to really have a fun time doing that. And there's another game, Realms of something. It's a RPG style thing where you can actually like shoot a bow and arrow, and people say it's like an 8-hour long actual first person RPG. So I'm excited to try that out. And there's a handful of other games that really need room scale VR. And also Google Earth VR is still, well, I was describing it to John the other day. It's either really cool or it probably won't do anything for you. For me, it was really cool. Did I tell you this, Dave? Like I went to Everest.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I was standing on top of Everest, and it wasn't like, holy crap, this is what it really looks like to be on top of Everest. But it was like, I don't know what the view looks like from up here. Like, I don't know anything about it. I don't know what the mountains look around it. Like, I didn't even know exactly where it was. But now I can, because of course I don't, because I'm bad at geography. But I'm like, I'm probably, being realistic, I'm probably never going to stand on top of Everest. The odds are low. And I was like, this is a view that it's not the same thing as being there. But this is something I was probably never going to see besides this. In the same way, I'll probably never walk on Mars. But there's a huge opportunity missed if the first guy to set foot on Mars is not wearing a 360-degree camera and recording the entire thing. And then think how crazy it would be to, like, step onto Mars, like, watching it in your headset, looking around. Like, but that's the future we're moving towards. Like,
but
and it's not
I don't
like,
want to step on Mars because space is the final nightmare.
well, that's on a planet, though. You're not in space anymore at that point. Is everything
Mars is not a
space?
planet. Mars is a death trap that hates humans and all things that we're about, like breathing, not dying.
But yeah, like that's not like the future we'll get to eventually one day. Like, we have the tech to do all that. It's just a matter of people wanting to set this stuff up and figure some of it out. Like, it's really, really cool. So Google Earth is a great way to put on some soothing music and just spend like 30 minutes just cruising around looking at stuff. Like, I turned on the human scale thing so you can zoom down and actually be standing somewhere. I also turned off comfort mode, and it made me very sick to my stomach because it doesn't restrict your view at all. So like, I hit the zoom out to global view, and the whole Earth I'm looking at goes, boom, boom. I was like, this is uncomfortable.
Why would you select or deselect the option that says comfort mode? I don't. Oh,
it
Jeremiah.
felt like the right move at the time. And then also been just playing some more Battlegrounds, had a couple fun matches with friends. Got very close to winning one of them, but what have you been playing, Dave?
A ridiculous amount of Fallout 4. This last settlement tour that goes live tomorrow, we recorded it yesterday, had to be split into 2 parts. It ended up being so dense. But I think it's wild that there's so many things in the game I haven't done, like as far as actual locations wise. Didn't love the main story, but man, I actually legitimately still enjoy creating settlements. Maybe I should just start doing this full time. As I'm almost there now. The amount of time I spent on it. But yeah, still lots of fun. Just the tiniest amount of Rising Storm 2. Definitely some rough edges as far as like sound design and stuff goes. They hotfixed the stupid, what's the word for when a sound has no fade based on distance?
The spatial sound
starts with AT something.
Attenuation.
Attenuation, thank you.
Okay.
They fixed that for the the gunship, where the entire like 1 minute where it was circling and shooting nonstop, it just sounded like it was right next to you every hit. They hotfixed that, thankfully. But yeah, a few rough spots, but still loving the game. I wish I had more time to play it before E3. I was telling Joel today about my current Empire Total War playthrough, my single player one, doing the Warpath campaign as the Cherokee Native Americans. I have played this game since 2009, and it's gotten to a point now where whenever I start a battle, the computer is always like, oh, bro, no, you don't want to do this. Like, you have a 15% chance of winning this one. And then I come out of it with like 200 losses out of 3,500. And the giant modern army that I was facing is decimated because I can kind of exploit the AI. I know how to look for weaknesses, like they don't protect their cannons well. They kind of go for bait. But yeah, I'm playing this Cherokee campaign where I'm at war with like all of the European powers, Spanish Empire, the United States, and also other Native American tribes. Like, I'm playing with Darth Mod, and it's one of those things where it's like the AI gets to cheat, and everyone hates you to make it hard. Mm-hmm. And somehow I'm holding on after 4 hours and probably 20 some turns. There's no reason that I should still exist, because every episode I'm spending probably, let's say, 80% of the recording time in battle mode, just flinging back waves of troops with my battered Native American armies. But it's almost like horde mode. It's like ridiculous at this point, but it's a lot of fun. I have played a lot of that game over the years. I missed out on Arma this week, which makes me sad. I was super busy working on Fallout stuff. Looking forward to getting back into that after E3, but I'm going to miss it again next week. Also makes me sad.
2 weeks off of Arma. I mean, that's the longest like break you've had from Arma in a long time, isn't it?
Yeah, honestly, my soul it aches for Arma.
Speaking of Arma, if you're potentially interested and you've been thinking like, I wonder if I could ever play Arma with the Casual Shenanigans gaming crew. Well, stay tuned. There might be an announcement coming sometime soon. What else you been playing, Dave?
I've been playing a little bit of Crossout. Did a sponsorship / demo with their open beta that came out recently. And I'm really bad at the building. I couldn't figure out where my power rating was off. It's like you build your battle car and you take it into PvP fights. And they have different defense, attack, and power ratings on the different parts to make it balanced. So you can't just like throw all of the best rare parts onto one vehicle and make like a super unfair thing. So I'm always like, wait, why don't I have enough structural integrity or power to do this? And it's like, oh, this cabin actually takes power away, doesn't add it, or vice versa. Anyway, I'm not great at the building, but I'm having fun in that. Got to see some players, because when I was first trying out the game in the closed beta, it was a ghost town before the open beta. I mean, there was like no one playing. Like everyone was just waiting. And finally, a little bit of Battlegrounds here and there. Hilariously, I just have no interest in playing single player on my own. I just don't know what it is. I
mean, I don't either.
I mean, I'm busy, but like if I think about sitting down and playing a game like multiplayer, I don't know. Battlegrounds to me, it's a great team game, kind of like DayZ squad stuff is what it reminds me of. But because there's no long-term anything in that game, playing it on my own just seems pointless, I guess. If that makes sense. It's weird. I don't know.
I mean, it makes sense, but yeah, like, I mean, I don't know. I think it's the most fun with friends too. Like, I don't think I've played any solo matches on my own either, but it makes sense.
That's what I've been playing.
Sweet. You ready for the news?
Always.
All right. It's now time for the news.
It's news time.
All right, I'll go first with a bit of news that Dave found. So this is stupid. But yesterday, AMD revealed the first die shot of their Vega 10 graphics chip, which will debut later this month. But WCCF Tech has now confirmed that AMD has confirmed that Vega die shot was not real and was made up by their marketing department.
Why is
so
this
apparently
a
this is a story where it's a fake die shot. Like, people are upset because I guess they were trying to read things into performance of the card based on what's on the die, in the same way that people were guessing the exact specs of the Xbox Scorpio by like looking at the number of memory chips like on the board that was shown in renders at E3 last year, and like
years in advance. Like,
yeah, like maybe there's something to that. Like, you can probably figure stuff out, but what's your ratio of total like moonshot guesses to actual things you figure out, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. Seems kind of dumb to me.
I'll have you know, Jeremiah, a few weeks ago, I saw a render of a building, and I just pointed at the sign next to the construction site, and I just yelled, "Liar!" Like, it's a rendering. Come on, guys.
And WCCF Tech also mentions that last year, Apple announced their MacBook Pro with AMD Polaris GPUs. In one of their marketing slides, they just pasted over the GPU die of Polaris. It's an actual Intel Skylake die shot. So basically, when they're looking for pictures of a die on a CPU, they just pick stuff and put it in there, because that's what marketing departments do, because marketing is not the engineers. As someone who works at a large corporation, I can tell you, the marketing department does not necessarily know anything about how stuff is actually put together. Their job is to market, not to build. That sounds like it's making fun of them, but it really isn't. That's just, they're two totally different things. And for 99% of the population, having the wrong die at the wrong computer generated die doesn't matter.
Oh man.
Speaking of also of things that don't matter, backwards compatibility. So people always really want backwards compatibility when a new console generation comes out. And in certain cases, it makes a lot of sense. Like PS3's being able to play old PS2 games because it was such an expensive console. Or on PCs, it makes a lot of sense because there aren't really generations, so your setup just kind of evolves over time, and a lot of PC games have smaller audiences, but then longer tail small audiences. But there's a reason that console manufacturers don't normally put a lot into backwards compatibility, and that's that people don't really do a lot of playing with backwards compatibility. So Sony head of global marketing and sales, Jim Ryan, did an interview with Time earlier this week, and they said that when they've dabbled with backwards compatibility, I could say it's one of those features that's much requested but not actually used much. And Ars Technica did an analysis of Xbox Live user data, and that shows that that's true. So they used a third-party API to randomly sample usage data from nearly 1 million active Xbox One gamer tags over a period of nearly 5 months. And they have a link about all the data and methodology. So 54.7% of the time that the sampled users spent on their Xbox Ones was spent playing Xbox One games. 16.5% Netflix, 6.7% the TV app, 6.6% YouTube, 14.1% other non-game apps, and 1.5% Xbox 360 backwards compatible games. So people spent less time like playing Xbox 360 games than they do watching TV on their Xbox Ones. Not Netflix and YouTube, just actual live television plugged into their Xbox Ones. They spend like a fourth as much time playing Xbox 360 backwards compatible games. So it's cool that that exists. Like, it is definitely cool that it exists. It's just not something that most people actually spend any time doing. And then if you're curious, like, well, how do those games break down? Like, what games are people playing for that 1.65%? Well, most of that is Call of Duty Black Ops. 0.307% is Call of Duty Black Ops, then Rayman Origins, Skate 3, Halo Reach, Bad Company 2, Burnout Paradise, and then it just drops off from there.
Man.
But Black Ops 3 is like twice as many users as the next one in line, which is Rayman Origins. So
disappointing. That's sad to hear.
Honestly, I don't care. I mean, if you want an Xbox 360, they're dirt cheap if you want to play Xbox 360 games. Like, backwards compatibility is cool, but getting the old console is not that hard. And if you want to play your old console games, you can always just keep your old console.
Yeah, I'm just used to having the option and seeing the developers actually, put some effort forward to making that available for console users, and then the console users just not caring. That's just kind of sad.
Microsoft did it, though. It was part of their bid to regain market share. Like, I'm sure it involved some developers participating, but like, it wasn't developers having to spend millions and millions of dollars or anything. Microsoft might have spent that much, but they're trying to regain market share. And it is a feature that people are like, holy crap, Xbox One has backwards compatibility. This is amazing. Like, what a great move by Microsoft. And then the numbers show that, well, maybe it's great on paper, but people aren't really using it that much. So still cool on paper, just not that useful. That doesn't mean it's a bad idea.
Yeah.
Dave, speaking of bad ideas, what's going on with CD Projekt Red?
We currently have a hostage scenario in progress with CD Projekt Red. That's a developing story, very intense.
Developing story.
Some internet rando has gotten his hands on design documents for Cyberpunk 2077, CD Projekt Red's eventual game coming out one decade. And he actually tried to hold them for ransom and gave CDPR some demands. They basically said, we don't negotiate with terrorists, is what I imagine. While like standing on top of a Soviet era tank, possibly, in Poland. So they're basically just saying to the public, hey guys, they threatened to release these documents if we didn't pay up. We're definitely not paying up. So if you see them, they're super old, not super relevant. Just wait for official stuff. And, hilariously, it's one of those things where I feel like with a lot of stuff, a lot of games, a lot of devs out there, if people were excited about the game and something got leaked, no matter how old and irrelevant it was, people would be like, oh, I want to see it. It's like Star Wars leaks. Like,
right,
could be completely wrong, but they just want to see it. But man, for CDPR, like the response I've seen is like, "Oh, don't worry, guys. Like we're not gonna look. It's fine. You guys just keep making your games." Like their response is just it's so funny for them.
Well, even if people do look, so what? Like, what if there was like 1,000 different screenshots? Like, it still isn't playing the game. Like, what if someone else can do? See it and be like, we're gonna rip this exact idea off in half the time? Like, no. Like, it's even if a bunch of stuff got leaked, it's not like a movie getting leaked where someone could just watch the whole movie and then they're fine. Like, you still can't play the game. Like, maybe it spoils some stuff or something. Like, it would suck. I'm not gonna say it wouldn't, but it's not like it's a total loss and nobody's gonna want to play it at that point. You know?
Yeah. It's one of those things too. Someone in the comments on the PC Gamer article pointed out that someone also tried this with the new Pirates movie and Disney. Mm-hmm. And Disney literally just ignored them, and they ended up having nothing in reality. It was all a ruse. So the safer option, of course, is to just ride it out, I guess.
Yeah.
But jerks.
All right, what's next?
Speaking of sad news, you guys remember For Honor, the game that just came out like 3 months ago?
Uh-huh.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but there really weren't any issues with the game itself. It had an okay launch.
Yeah.
There's a decent amount of like payable DLC, but it wasn't really causing balance issues from what I heard. Game seemed to run fine. Had a pretty dedicated player base at launch. Their player base has dropped 95%. It's currently peaking at 3.4 thousand players. What a weird way to write that. 3,400 players, according to PCGamesSN.com. Their record was 71,000. Surprise, surprise, during the open beta. That really shouldn't count.
They never even hit their open beta numbers during the actual release?
It appears not. They also released their first DLC a month ago, where, trying to get new content out there, get their dedicated fans excited. Their player base went up by about 1,200 nightly average for like a week, and then dropped right back down again. So it had like a 5% jump for a DLC launch. It's rough. Okay, according to the article here, actually the launch was plagued by connection issues. Oh, I do remember some, like, because the servers are peer-to-peer.
Mm-hmm.
Not the servers, I guess. The connection is peer-to-peer. There were connection issues. It's gotten better. I forgot about that part.
I don't think that was supposed to be terrible, though. Like, it was a few launch issues, but I don't remember it being, like, a disaster or anything.
And from what the article says here at the bottom, Ubisoft has managed to, if not turn things around for the Division, they've at least improved things quite a bit. And they've got a pretty stable player base. It's actually stronger than For Honors right now on the Division.
And Ghost Recon appears to be doing pretty well, too.
Ghost Recon is doing great, although I've heard that they are actually postponing their next big DLC launch, I guess Season 2 entirely, because they want to focus on a maintenance patch, because things like desync have gotten quite bad sometimes. They're just trying to squash some bugs for any more content. But you're right, the player base on Rainbow Six is doing quite well.
All right, what is your next bit of news?
Man, I've got like all the depressing news tonight. Here we go, though. Mass Effect, the new Mass Effect Andromeda. There's a lot of hype behind it. A lot of, E3 hype, a lot of, passionate developer interviews and stuff like that in the lead up. Well, when the game launched, everything just fell off. Animations were buggy, the game was buggy, the story wasn't amazing. Most people agree it's not like a bad game, it just felt not AAA at all, essentially. It didn't live up to Mass Effect's pedigree. Well, according to PC Gamer, who is referencing an article at Kotaku, I'm like going down the ping pong list here of sources. Developers have spoken up about the development of Andromeda, saying that up until the last half of the project, there really wasn't a direction for the game at all. Like, they were just throwing things at the wall still. And that the majority of the game was developed in 18 months near the end.
Which is very, very short for game development, if anyone's not sure.
That's not AAA game time at all. 18 months. That's insane. That's like the last third of a AAA game's development with a huge team. And additionally, speaking of the team, major people came and went from the couple of studios that worked on the game constantly during development. And because of this, there was apparently some pretty serious locking of horns between the studios over the game's direction and stuff like that. And according to this quote right here, the core idea for the game remained, and I quote here, "No Man's Sky with BioWare graphics and story." That remained the plan until the end of 2015, just over a year before the game was supposed to launch, at which point they just completely threw away that idea. They wanted to add like dynamic galaxy generation and stuff to the Frostbite engine, and discovered that all of that was just way too ambitious. But again, all this sounds like it was discovered in the last year and a half of development, and so much has had to get scrapped. And the developers say here at the end of the article that it was the worst crunch time for many of their careers, lasting most of those final 18 months, and that the game was so close to the wire of getting done, quote unquote, that there wasn't even a traditional bug fixing pass at the end. It was just slam the lid on it, put it out the door. Honestly, not to rag on the game a whole lot, but sounds like it makes a lot of sense.
Well, I think people seem to like the game. Like, it's a decent game besides like the crappy animations, a bunch of other stuff, but I don't know.
Honestly,
I
it
play
just
at some point.
For sure. Like, it doesn't look awful, but it really explains the call it the wonk level of what we saw at launch.
It does, which is what I'm interested about. Is it's not like this was an immediate sequel to a previous Mass Effect game. Like, they had a while to do this. So I'm curious why they didn't have a design direction before they got going. Like, that has worked before. Iron Man didn't have a script for most of the movies, you know, like while the movie got off the ground. Like, it does happen. It just seems odd that they would spend that much money and stuff and not even have a direction nailed down. Maybe they had one and it didn't, like, just didn't pan out. I don't know. It is odd. I'm curious to know the rest of the story behind that. Like, some part of me doubts that they just started development and truly had zero idea where they were going. My guess is they were drawing some stuff and none of it panned out, but like they had initial plans for things they were doing. But I could be wrong.
Yeah.
But anyway, got any other news?
I just want to make something happy up to make up for all that. Here we go, guys.
Well, E3 starting.
Yeah, that's going to be exciting. Also, have you guys heard of The Witcher 3? That's a happy game. Development was great. Game's great. Happy story of a game's development.
Okay, I was going to say, that's a happy game. Huh. Okay, I mean, you know, potato, tomato.
It's a game that makes me happy. How about that?
All right, fair enough. All right, it is now mail time. You can write in to be a part of the show at casualshenanigans@gmail.com, just like Kenneth did. Kenneth wrote in and said, "Hey, I just wanted to say I love your podcast and all the hosts, mostly. James is a wise old guy. Joel is the fun uncle your parents don't want you to see. Dave is your grandpa who wishes America could be like the good old days. And then there's Jeremiah. No offense, but he's kind of annoying, always talking about cars and picking on Joel. Like, you should just bring Debbie on full time and he can, like, do his cars while he listens to the podcast. Overall, I give you an 8 out of 10.
So his suggestion is for you to leave the podcast and work out in the driveway
and
while
do
Debbie
cars. And do cars. I'll just be doing the cars at 8 p.m. Eastern time.
That is glorious. Oh, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have no words, honestly. Like, that's the kind of feedback that cuts deep. I got no jokes. Just sadness.
You have no jokes, but do you have a comment of the week for this week?
Yes, I do. Oh, man.
Sweet.
I still laugh reading this one. I want to make sure I get it right. Give me a minute. It was only a few days ago. It should be in the top of the list somewhere. I know which word I can search for to find it in my comments list. Oh, where is it? Tell me he deleted it. Stand by. I'm searching. Stall for me, Jeremiah. Stall.
So
I found it. It was literally like the next scroll down. This was a drive-by comment on my first impressions video for Rising Storm 2 Vietnam. Just randomly posted. Just wanted to share some feedback on my commentary and thoughts on the game. This new viewer to the channel says, "You sound like you're taking it anally." The end. All right.
What are the standout voice signatures that would give you that impression?
I'm not entirely sure, and honestly, it intrigued me so much that he shared that thought with me that if I had more time this week, I kind of wanted to go back and listen to that commentary and be like what part of this video would lead down that path, that train of thought right there? Huh.
Probably best not to know.
Maybe I don't want to know. Maybe I don't want to know. I just realized the next comment in the list is on Fortress Sanctuary. It's just in context, side by side, it's just great. Kyle shares, "I thought I was anal when building settlements, but wow." It's just side by side, it's just great. Oh man, that's my comment of the week though.
Sweet. Well, thank you everybody for coming out and being part of the show. As always, you can write into Casual Shenanigans to be a part of the show. You can tweet at casualshenanigans. You can go to casualshenanigans.com. There's a handy dandy contact form there where you can write in and be a part of the show through that as well, which actually we get most of our mail through that. And you can find us on YouTube and Facebook and everything else. Before we go, Ronnie asks, when would you like to see the next Fallout game to be? Where would you like to see the next Fallout game?
Ooh. I've actually thought a little bit about that. I loved what Bethesda did with Far Harbor, that main environment. But what it made me think of was how amazing it would be to have a Fallout set in the mountains of Washington State. Mm-hmm. That would be really, really neat. Like an Alan Wake, but in the Fallout universe, post-apocalypse. Maybe even where there were no nearby atomic bombs, so just the kind of the environment's just a little bit dead. But you've got people who've just been up in the mountains, surviving for generations. Like there's all kinds of cool stuff that I think just looking at their pine trees and all in Far Harbor, the fog and all. Oh man, it could be really cool. What would Jeremiah pick? More cities, right, for the FPS?
Well, it's interesting. So it's Fallout, so you have to assume that, there's been a nuclear, we're living in a nuclear wasteland. So it has to be like post 1945, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe like Dubai?
Oh, look at you going foreign.
Maybe like modern day, but think how cool it would be to have like a sanctuary all the way up, like whatever that giant building is. I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah.
The Burj Khalifa? I don't remember. I probably could have Googled this before I started talking. But I think how cool that could be. Like, I don't know, it just seems it's a very different city compared to Boston or, stuff we've had over here in America. It could be interesting also because it's not a American city, which is like Fallout does have a lot of like pro-American propaganda and other stuff in it. Like it's like very down home Americana post-nuclear war wasteland.
Yeah, it's all that. Like there's nothing else outside of America.
Right, so it would be very interesting to see that from a completely different point of view across the world. So I think that's what I would do.
Let me just answer Jonathan's question here before we end it. Gwent Open Beta. I have only played a couple of rounds, I think 5 total, since the Open Beta went live. 2 of those were against Joel, actually, and he wrecked me. I like it, but CDPR changed a ton of stuff in the final patch, and honestly, I'm still getting my bearing back. Like, all my cards are gone, obviously, that was expected, but, like, they changed how weather works for, like, the 5th time completely. Like, the mechanic is completely different for the 5th time. So I'm mainly just confused at this point. Like, my faction that I enjoy playing as, Nilfgaard, their faction ability in the closed beta was to shuffle 1 card at the end of every round. I didn't realize until I played like 5 games, oh wait, they made that so that everyone can do that now. I mean,
Right.
well, what's my faction ability? I don't know. Just so much has changed. I'm still getting my feet again. My standing again. My footing. I'm still getting my footing again.
Your footing. Yes, your footing.
It was like 2 different levels of Joelism right there. Yeah, I like it. I think the open beta definitely made improvements. I'm a bit lost still.
Cool. Well, thank you everybody for coming out and being part of the show. As always, you can follow us in all those places I mentioned a couple minutes ago, so I won't drag it out any longer. I'll see you next week for Casual Shenanigans Tech. Won't be recorded live. I'll just record that and post it up later. But for now, and as always, stay casual.